Hey guys, so this is the last set of notes for the factoring unit, 8F.3, and this is for factoring numbers where A, which is the first the first number that comes out front of the x squared in your trinomial is greater than 1. So this is for when it's greater than 1, aka 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So if the A is greater than 1 and the B and the C don't really come into play here, but they're always there in a trinomial, okay? If the A is greater than 1, this is what we're going to do. So one of the methods that Mrs. Whitman wants to teach is the guess and check method. But I am not a huge fan of the guess and check method. Instead, what I'm going to teach you is what is called the Berry method. So if you want to X that out and write in the Berry method, that is what I'm going to teach you right now. And I'm actually going to do it in this little spot over to the right here, okay? So when you're doing the Berry method, your first step is to multiply the A and the C. So you're going to multiply the number that comes out front of the x squared, and you're going to multiply that by the last number in your trinomial. Once you get an answer there, your second step is to determine a factor of your answer, a factor of A times C. So I'm going to write that as A times C. That, remember, adds or subtracts to get you B. Okay? So to get you that middle number. Once you find those numbers, then the third step is what you're going to do is going to lie. And you're going to put the A in front of the X when you write out your factored. So it's going to look like this. When you write out your factor, you're going to put A, X at the beginning of both of your factors. Okay, this is the lie method. You're still going to use whatever pattern it is. Okay, you could have a plus plus. Let's say you have a plus plus. And then you're going to use the two numbers that you found out from step 2, where you factored them out and you found the ones that add or subtract to get you the middle number. Once you lie, then step 4 is you are going to simplify, which means you are going to make sure you get rid of what number that can come out of both of those. Let's see what this actually looks like. So again, you have your reminders up here of your patterns, okay? If there's a plus plus, then your answer is going to also have a plus plus. If there's a minus plus, remember that your answer is going to be a minus minus. And then if there is a plus or a minus sign and a minus, remember your answer is going to have a plus minus, but it all is going to depend on minus or plus, the bigger or smaller number. All right, so let's look at this Berry method through an example. So in the first example, we have the number 3 in front of the x squared and 4 out front of the, as your C. So 3 is your A and 4 is your C. So first step in the Berry method is to multiply 3 times 4, which gets you 12. Then second step is to figure out what factors of 12 add or subtract to get you 8. Okay, so two factors of 12 that add or subtract to get you 8. When you think about the two factors of 12 that add or subtract to get you 8, you have 6 and 2. When you add to get them together, do in fact get you 8. So I know my two numbers that I'm going to use are 6 and 2. Then it comes to the lying part of the Berry method. So I'm going to open up my parentheses and I'm going to start my equation or my factor with 3x because 3x is what is at the beginning of our problem. So we have 3x at the start. The signs are a minus plus, which tells me that I'm going to have a minus minus in my answer. And then I'm going to put that 6 and 2 at the end. Okay? Then from here is where you simplify. Notice that in my first factored out form, I have 3x minus 6. Notice that I can take a 3 out of both of those numbers. I can divide a 3 out of both of those numbers. When I do, if I can divide a number out of both of those, I am going to do it. So when I do that, I am left with x minus 6 divided by 3 is 2. And the other factor, I cannot take anything out, so I leave it as 3x minus 2. That is your final answer, your final factored form. Okay, so let's try it again. The more practice we get with the Berry method, the better we'll get at it. Okay, so in the next example, we have the A is 5 and the C is 8. So 5 times 8 is 40. So remember, we're trying to think of two factors of 40 that add or subtract to get you 18. Okay, so two factors of 40 that add or subtract to get you 18. So if you think about the factors of 40, we've got 4 and 10, which doesn't get you 18. We've got 2 and 20, which if I indeed subtract those two numbers, I do get 18. So therefore, I'm going to use these two numbers of 2 and 20 to write out my answer. Okay? So when I write out my answer, I'm going to do the lying part. I'm going to open up my two sets of parentheses, and I'm going to start both of them with 5x because that is how we started our equation. Okay, we started our equation with 5x. Noticing that it's a minus minus sign, I know I'm going to minus the bigger number and plus the smaller number. So the bigger number is 20 and the smaller number is 2. So far, this is what I've got. Notice that in my first factored form, I can take out of both of those numbers a 5. I can divide out a 5 out of both of those numbers. So when I do that, I'm going to get my final answer of x minus 20 divided by 5 is 4 times 5x plus 2. There's my final answer. Okay, so remember, we're only using the Berry method when the number that is out front of the x squared is bigger than 1. Okay, and that is called our a. So in number 3, we have the a is 10 and the c is 8. So we have 10 times 8 is 80. Now remember, we have to think of two factors of 80 that add or subtract to get us 21. So when I think about the two factors of 80 that add or subtract to give me 21, two factors of 80 would be 2 and 40, which wouldn't add or subtract to get me 21. It would also be 4. If I divide 80 by 4, I get 4 and 20, which wouldn't get me 21. If I divide 80 by 8, I've got 8 and 10. That wouldn't get me 21. If I divide 80 by all of the even numbers, let's say 16. If I divide 80 by 16, I get 16 and 5. And in fact, 16 and 5, when you add them together, does get you 21. Okay, so that tells me that these are the two numbers that I'm going to use. According to the Berry method, my next step would be to lie. So I'm going to take 10x and put it at the front. They're both plus plus, so I know my answer is going to be plus plus. And then 16 and 5 are going to come at the end. Now notice in my first equation again, or my first factor again, I can take out of both of these a 2. So if I do that, I'm left with 5x plus 8 times, oh, and in the second one, I can also take out something. Notice in the second one, I can take out a 2, sorry, not a 2 this time. This time I can take out 5 out of both of those. So I'm going to divide the first one by 5, and I'm going to divide the second one by 5. So when I do that, I'm left with 2x plus 5 divided by 5 is 1. There's our final answer. So sometimes you'll notice that the numbers get bigger, okay? So as some of the numbers get bigger, it makes it a little bit harder to find what number multiplied gets you that middle number. So I'm actually going to show you in number 4 another method called, and this one's called the ninja method that I actually just learned about, and I think it might help some people if you like dealing with fractions. So the ninja method starts the same way as Starts the same way as the Berry method, and you do take the first two numbers and you multiply them. But what you want to do now is you want to set up your answer to be x squared, so without that number out front, minus 20x, and then 4 times 25 is 100. So you're going to put the times part at the end here. Then from there, you're going to factor like you normally would this, okay? So if I open up my parentheses here, I know I'm going to have an x at the front, and I know my answer according to the patterns is going to be a minus minus, okay? Then again, I do my regular factoring here, and I know that two factors, I think about two factors of 100 that get you 20. So two factors of 100 that get you 20 would be, let's see, we have 4 and 25 would not get you 20, but we have 2 and 50. If we divide that by 2 and 50, that wouldn't get you 20, right? So let's try dividing that by, if I divide 100 by 10, I've got 10 and 10, and that gets you 20. 10 plus 10 gets you 20. So I know my two numbers here are going to be 10 and 10. Then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my starting number, my coefficient 4, and I'm going to divide it by both of these numbers. So it becomes x minus 10 over 4 times x minus 10 over 4. Then I'm going to reduce that fraction to be x minus, reducing both those fractions would be 5 over 2 times x minus 5 over 2 again. Then the last step in the ninja method is that you are now going to take this number 2 and put it at the front of your x to write out your final answer. So when I do that, I'm left with my final answer of 2x minus 5 times 2x minus 5. So this is another method called the ninja method. It is totally up to you if you want to use this method. It does deal with fractions, but some people might find this a little bit easier, so I wanted to make sure I showed you how this method works. And if you like it, use it. If you don't use it. Okay? So in the next one, we have, in our next set of notes, we have 4x squared minus 9. So remember that for this one, we only have a difference of squares here, okay? So remember that all we really need to do is we need to figure out what number squared gets you 9 and what number squared gets you 4, okay? So when I write out my answer, remember when you have a difference of squares, it's minus plus, and the number squared that gets you 4 is 2, and the x stays with it. And then the number squared that gets you 9 is in fact 3, right? So when I write out my answer for these, I'm going to put 2x at the beginning, and I'm going to put 3 at the end. There's my final answer. So the difference of squares is just a matter of determining what number squared gets you both the first and the second number. Then in number 6, we have our typical, if I go back to the Berry method instead of the ninja method, okay? The Berry method is similar though. I'm going to take my A and multiply it by my C. So I have 9 times 1 is 9. And then I have to think of two factors of 9 that add or subtract to get me 6. And I do in fact have 3 and 3 add to get you 6. Okay? So I know when I set up my answer here, I'm going to lie. We started our equation with 9x squared, so I'm going to start my equation with 9x. The plus plus is the symbol according to the factoring pattern. And then 3 and 3 would come at the end because those are the two numbers of the factors that I found. Then from there, you simplify to see if you can take anything further out. In my first one, I know I can take out a 3. In my second one, I can also take out a 3. So when I do that, I'm left with a final answer of 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 1. There's our final answer. okay? So again, it does not matter which method you use, either use the Ninja one or the Berry method, whichever one is going to be quicker for you. So take your time with this practice on the worksheet that follows after this, and let me know if you have any questions. Good luck.